Good morning. All right, today is officially the last day of my summer class, Introduction to Dental Hygiene, and I'm very excited, a little nervous, only because today, after we're finishing up the presentations, we're going to take the final exam. I've been studying for it all last week, so I feel okay about it. I feel prepared. And in the afternoon, once we go to the lab, we're going to take an assessment, which is basically, it's going to test us on whether or not we know how to properly hold the instrument both in our dominant and non-dominant hand, and if we know whether or not to properly position ourselves, the chair, the equipment, and the patient. So I feel pretty good about it. We've been practicing it a lot in lab with the instructors, and I've been doing pretty well, so I think I'll do well. Those are the last two things that I have left in my grade book. Everything else has been put in. I'm at a pretty good standpoint. I feel like I can pass the class with an A. So right now I'm just gonna head inside and study a little bit before I go into class. I did get here a little early. I have all my junk here with me. So I'm gonna go ahead and go inside, and I'll see you guys in a bit. Okay, so I just got out of class. I finished taking my exam, and now this is what I have for lunch. We have a quesadilla and my salad. So I took the exam and I'm a little disappointed as to how I did. I ended up getting 6 questions wrong, which is an 80, but she did say she was gonna throw one question out, so 25 out of 30. So that is an 83%. That is considered, I think, a B with that weird grading scale. So she said that she was gonna post our final grade on Friday. She has to check every single one of our tests to see that there's no incorrect what is it called, any mistakes. So I'm gonna have to wait until Friday to see what my final grade is. There was a couple questions where I felt like there was only like 1 or 2 that I was like, oh, I don't know what this is, but everything else I pretty much knew, so I'm not sure why my grade is what it is, but I'll just have to wait and see until I can check what answers I got. Then after this, I'm just going to head over to the library to study for the assessment, and then we'll be done for the day. Okay, at the library, I've been practicing for a while, but I just wanted to show you kind of what I've been doing. So, textbook open up. I have my rubric here, the chapstick to hold this thing open, and then I also have a bunch of like reminders how to set up. So I'm gonna position myself first, then the patient, then the equipment, then the mirror, and then my dominant hand. And I kind of made like little practice options for myself. So for example, number 2, distal buccal. So if we go over here, number 2 distal buccal would be this tooth here, and it would be this surface right here. So distal buccal. So we would have the position facing like this, since it's a maxillary tooth, and we would sit at the 9 o'clock position. Hopefully you can see this, but the next step would be correct placement. So I have the C shape, distance between the pointer and the thumb, and then we've got our middle finger by the shank, and then our ring finger is past the ring finger, and then we would retract like this, and we would place the finger in the distal buccal right there. And the reason I'm doing this with a pen is because this is how we are going to be graded for our assessment. We're not going to use actual instruments. It's just, they're just trying to see if we have the correct placement and the correct proper modified pen grasp of our instrument. So it will be right there. And then let me show you what it looks like in here. Can you guys see this okay? So pretty much this is just what I've been working on. I'm just gonna go through a couple more of these. So I made a whole bunch, and then just practice, and then hopefully with that I'll be pretty good with the when it comes down to the assessment. Okay, so I took a little break from studying and I went to the bookstore to buy a couple of my books, but apparently their system was down, so I'm gonna have to order everything else online. I need to order 2 instrument kits, the x-ray kit, and I think she said we needed just a couple more textbooks, like 5 I think. So I'll do that once I get home. Now I'm gonna find another study spot by the classroom. Okay, so I'm in clinic now. So I just wanted to show you guys what I do during clinic. So here I am just practicing after my assessment. So here I am just checking what working end of the instrument I should be using for the lower left side of the mouth. I am sitting at the right temple of the patient, which is at the 10 and 11 o'clock position. Now, since this is a mandibular tooth, the patient's chin is tilted down, and I'm starting at the distal buccal line angle, working my way across the buccal surface, all the way across, and then I repeat this all the way until I finish with the premolars. Now, the next section I wanted to work on was the mandibular anterior teeth. Now, for this, I'm going to palm my mirror in my hand and use my pointer finger to retract the lips. And I'm going to be working on the surfaces away. So I'll start at the midline of the tooth and work my way across until I reach the distal surface of the tooth. Here I made a mistake. I'm sitting at the incorrect clock position for that surface of the tooth. That is the surface towards. I'm supposed to be sitting at the 8 o'clock position. But for that surface that I'm doing now, I'm in the correct position at the 12 o'clock. So I start at the midline and work my way all the way to the distal surface, and I do this until I reach the canine. So it would be from canine to canine for the anterior teeth. The next part of the mouth I want to work on are the maxillary anterior teeth. For this, I need to lower the patient's head and place the light directly over the teeth. Now I'm going to be staying at the same cock position because I'm going to be working on the surfaces away from me on the anterior teeth. Now for this, I just palm my mirror on my non-dominant hand and use my fingers to retract the lips, and then I position myself so that I am starting my fulcrum finger 1 to 3 teeth away from that first canine that I'm going to be starting with. And it's the same thing as before. I place my instrument on the midline and then work my way across until I reach about the halfway point of the distal or mesial surface. Now once again, I'm going to be doing this from canine to canine. Okay, I didn't want to switch clock positions for this, so for this next part, what I'm going to do is raise the patient's head a little bit to work on the mandibular teeth on the lingual surface. I'm going to be doing all the surfaces away. Now for this, the camera did get cut off a little bit, so bear with me. Now for this, we're going to be using the mirror for indirect vision. So I'm going to use it to push the tongue back a little bit and to see the surfaces through the mirror instead of directly looking at it with my eyes. And it's the same technique as before. I'm going to be starting at the midline and then working my way across to the mesial or distal surface of the tooth. Next, I will be doing the lingual surface of the maxillary anterior teeth, and this will be done from canine to canine. Here I'm using my mirror for indirect vision, as it would be very difficult for me to see this directly with my eyes. So this was my first time practicing at all on any tooth, on any surface with indirect vision. So if it looks a little messy, please bear with me. I'm still learning. Now I'm still in the same clock position. I'm at the 12 o'clock position, which is right at the top of the patient's head. Now, since this is a maxillary tooth that I'm working on, the patient's head is tilted a little farther back. Alright, now it's time for the posterior teeth. Now for this, I'm going to be doing the surfaces away on the maxillary teeth. So the patient's head will be tilted towards me so that I could see a bit better. Now the first thing I have to do is to check what working end I should be using on these particular teeth. So this working end right here is the correct one since the functional shank is pointing out of the mouth. So this is the working end we're going to be using on these particular teeth. To start off with, I'm going to retract with my mirror. This is going to serve to pull the cheek away so that I can see and for indirect vision. Now this part right here is what I'm struggling with where to place my fulcrum so that I can start on the distal surfaces for the exploring. As you may not have noticed, I am no longer sitting at the 12 o'clock position. I am now sitting at the 10 or 11 o'clock position, which is at the patient's right temple. So the midline of my torso is facing the patient's right temple. As you may have noticed, this is a little bit different than the anterior teeth. So there we start at the distal buccal line angle and work our way across to the halfway point of the distal surface, then reinsert and work our way across the buccal surface into the halfway point of the mesial surface. Now for the next part of the mouth, I'm not going to move my clock position. I'm going to stay at the 10 and 11 o'clock position. I'm just going to check what working end I'm going to be using for this particular teeth. These are surfaces away, which is why I'm still sitting at this clock position. And I'm going to start with the most posterior molar and go all the way to the first premolar. Now for these next set of teeth that I'm going to be working on, these are going to be the maxillary posterior teeth with those surfaces towards me. So it'll be the same as before. We always have to check the working end, and once I know I have the correct working end, we'll start from the most posterior tooth and then make my way all the way to the first premolar. Now, since these are surfaces towards me, I'm going to be sitting at the 9 o'clock position instead of the 10 to 11. So at the 9 o'clock position, I'm going to be sitting with my torso pointed at the patient's cheek. Now that I'm done working on the maxillary teeth, the next thing is to work on the mandibular teeth. Now for this, I'm going to raise the patient's head a little bit so that the chin is tilted down. Then I'm going to tilt the patient's head away from me just so that I can see the teeth more directly. Now I'm going to be using my mirror to retract the tongue, and I'm going to check what working end I need for the set of teeth. And it's just the same thing as before. We'll start with the most posterior molar, which is tooth number 17, and work my way all the way to the first premolar, which is tooth number 21. Now, since I'm working on the mandibular posterior teeth, the surface is towards me, and I'm sitting at the 9 o'clock position, which is when my torso is pointing towards the patient's cheek or mouth. Now this is the second area on the posterior mandibular teeth that has surfaces towards me. So I'm still going to be sitting at the 9 o'clock position, and I'm going to be working on the buccal surfaces this time. Now I'm going to work on the surfaces towards me for the anterior teeth. As you just saw, I moved over to the 8 o'clock position, and now I'm just going to have the patient's head front and center with the chin tilted down for the mandibular teeth. Now the light is going to be adjusted so that it's directly over the teeth, so that way I can see properly. Now for the anterior teeth, I'm going to switch over to the Orban Explorer. If you want more information as to which instrument is what, please check out my previous blog. I go into a lot of detail as to what specific instrument is used for what specific area of the mouth. Now we're going to do the maxillary lingual surfaces of the anterior teeth. I'm not going to switch clock positions, however, I am going to tilt the patient's head back so that I could see the teeth a bit better. The light is going to go directly over the teeth, and the mirror is going to be used for indirect vision. So now we're moving on to the maxillary facial surfaces of the anterior teeth. This will go from canine to canine, and I'll be working on all the surfaces that are towards me, so I do not need to move from the 8 o'clock position. So I'll be starting at the midline of the tooth, which is the middle of the tooth, and then I'll work my way over to the mesial surface. Then once again, insert at the midline, make my way over to the mesial surface, and repeat until I get all the way to the other side to the other canine. This is a really good camera angle, so let me show you the midline. The midline is the middle of the tooth right there. So I'll insert my instrument right at the midline like so, with the point pointing down. It's official. We're officially done with the first semester of dental hygiene school. Oh my goodness, you guys, I just got out of lab. We did the assessment and I got 100. I was so nervous. I was like, should I go first? And I was like, I'm gonna let everybody go first. And I ended up going second to last, only because somebody went to the bathroom, so there was nobody else to go first. So I was like, I'll go. So I went. I did really well. I got 100% on the assessment and the final, which is absolutely amazing. Just give me 1 second. I'm gonna get into the car. Okay, I'm in the car. Oh my goodness, I was so worried, you guys, about my grade. I really wanted to get an A in this class, but I was cutting it a little close. So basically, a 92 to 100 is considered an A. Anything below that, from I think 82 to a 91 is a B, something like that. Like, I really don't want to get less than a 92. I want the A, right? And I was like, oh, I was like praying to God. I was like, please give me the wisdom so that I can get this A. And after I took the written final, and I ended up getting 6 questions wrong, and I was really surprised because I felt very certain that I knew the answers. And what ended up happening is she threw one question out because there was like something wrong. It had like 4 of the answer options. It was a multiple choice. 4 of the answer options were exactly the same, so she tossed it out and she checked the rest of the questions, and I ended up getting a couple points back because there was a couple of errors. So I did end up getting 100 on the final exam, the written one. And then I did my assessment and I got 100%. I was stressing. I don't know, you guys have seen in my other vlogs when I'm practicing, I struggled a lot with where to place my fulcrum for my dominant hand. And for those of you who don't know, your fulcrum is like this finger here, your ring finger. It'll be straight, and that's what you use to rest on a cheek, a tooth, so that you can kind of like balance and use that as like a pivot point while you're working on the mouth. So I was struggling a lot with that, and I practiced after we got out of lecture, I practiced in the library. And I met up with some classmates before class. We put our heads together and we were trying to figure out where to put certain, how to position ourselves properly, which was really helpful. And then afterwards, there was this one particular tooth that I was like, this is gonna get me if it's on there. And it was tooth number 19, lingual. Tooth number 19 is on the lower left mandibular. Lingual is on the tongue side. That. We were discussing whether or not the mirror was supposed to be used for tongue retraction or for indirect vision. And we were struggling on where to put our fulcrum from our dominant hand, since we were all right-handed. We were like, it felt more natural to put it extra-orally, but they wanted us to do it intra-orally in the mouth. So what was on the test? Number 19, lingual. And I'm so glad that I spent a ton of time practicing that. I spent like a good half an hour trying to figure out where am I supposed to be for that particular tooth, and it was on the assessment. And then there was one other tooth number 14, which is your first molar on the top left. And they're trying to discuss whether or not we put the fulcrum on the premolars or on tooth number 2, which is the molar next to it. And what was on the assessment? Tooth number 14. Oh, but luckily we practiced it, we talked it over, and I did good. We did good. So I just want to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, because I was like, I'm gonna trust you, God, that I'll have the knowledge and wisdom to be able to do this. And lo and behold, I did it. So I just want to take a moment to thank you guys for coming along with me during my journey of my first semester, my first class of the dental hygiene program. Luckily, I was able to record this time during lab, so you can kind of see what I was doing. After I did my assessment, I stayed behind. I asked if I could stay behind and practice exploring. Nobody else stayed. Everybody went home. By the time my turn came around and I finished my assessment, it was like 5:30. So I could have gone home, but I stayed until 7:25. The last 5 minutes I just cleaned up. But I did find it very helpful to stay, only because it's so difficult to keep that little Dentex, the little teeth model, open using the lipstick. So I was like, I'm gonna take advantage that we have the head that has the magnets on either end that'll pull the mouth open. So I practice a lot of indirect vision, which is when you use the mirror to see, because you cannot directly see it looking straight at it. So I did that because I know once I'm at home, I'm not gonna be able to do that, only because I can't prop the mouth open on my own. and using the mirror is just a mess. So I was like, I'll practice at indirect vision, and we had not practiced this in lab yet, so it was kind of new to me. So if you see me making a lot of mistakes, it's because it was my first time doing it. So I do need to practice a lot. I'm gonna try and see how I can figure out how to practice on my own at home. I need to find something else because the lipstick just pops out of my mouth. It goes flying out sometimes, or it'll dislocate the jaw of the Dentix. So I have to stop and then put the little springs back on. But I want to thank you for coming along with me in my journey for my first semester of dental hygiene school. Hopefully you'll stick with me and come along with me in a couple weeks once the fall semester starts. I am going to film a lot more during lab. I finally figured out how to do it without having somebody try to take pictures for me or record. But next semester, the fall semester, is going to be really intense. It's going to be 9 classes, and it'll be all throughout the whole week, Monday through Friday. This summer semester was just every Monday, 1 class, so it was kind of easy. Not as much, the load wasn't so heavy. So I hope you guys come along with me. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next fall semester. Bye.